Now, I had never traveled Frontier Airlines before, so this was the first time. And I'll be honest with you, I had heard some things about it that the biggest thing about Frontier is that they nickel and dime you. That their fares are cheap, but by the time they get through nickel and diming you, you will have paid almost just as much as if you had flown a different carrier. Hi there, this is Suzette and welcome to my channel where I'm redefining my 60s on my own terms. And as promised in previous episodes, I wanted to just share with you some things that I found out when traveling on my recent trip to San Juan, Puerto Rico. And just some things that I learned about the different OTAs, which stands for Online Travel Agents. In my previous episode, I talked more in depth about Kiwi.com, but in this particular episode, I want to focus my attention on Frontier. Now, I had never traveled Frontier Airlines before, so this was the first time. And I'll be honest with you, I had heard some things about it that the biggest thing about Frontier is that they nickel and dime you. That their fares are cheap, but by the time they get through nickel and diming you, you will have paid almost just as much as if you had flown a different carrier. Well, in true Suzette fashion, I went on Kiwi.com, looked for the cheapest flight, not just the cheapest, but the cheapest flight that had the flight times that were most favorable for us. Now, unfortunately, we ended up taking red eyes. I took the Frontier red eye going and the JetBlue red eye coming back. But it was kind of cool. You know, I had never traveled that late at night. We arrived in San Juan at like 12, almost 1 o'clock in the morning. And surprisingly, it was cool. It was really neat. We were able to like relax on the plane and all that. When we got there, you know, it wasn't that many people there, so we didn't have a long wait for our baggage. So taking the red eye wasn't a bad thing. And surprisingly, I wasn't exhausted when I woke up the next morning. Well, I'll say later the same morning. So it wasn't that bad. So as far as the times, the travel times, sure, I would have preferred something in the daytime. But it ended up working out really, really, really well. And fortunately, the Airbnb we stayed at, the superhost was very kind. Everything was easy. Check-in was easy. So we were able to put our bags down and, you know, get ready for bed. So that all worked out just fine. Some things about Frontier, and I have my little trusty tablet here to make sure I don't forget anything. So I want to talk about the pros and the cons of traveling Frontier Airlines in my experience. You're welcome to yours, and I would love to hear yours in the comments section. If you have something to add, that would be definitely welcome, because like I say always, certain things that I say may resonate with some people, but something you say may really resonate with them in a way that maybe what I say doesn't. So feel free to share your comments and your perspectives. I welcome them. I read them. I respond to them. Okay? So about Frontier. The pros. Let's start with the pros. One of the things I absolutely loved was they had done away with first class. And instead, they had it based on comfort seating, where you could get extra room. I can't remember what they called it, but it was one of those seats where you had extra leg room and so forth. And the seat that I chose, my husband and I chose, was one where we were in the very front of the plane. Where first class normally would have been, that's where we were. And I love that one of the seat options was to have an empty seat in between the window seat and the aisle seat. I love that. I love that. We were able to put like our personal items down and everything. We had that extra space in between. It was just overall very, very good. Those seats were fantastic. I loved being part of the boarding, were the first people to board. It was great. The only problem, well, there were two. Two problems were, we were close to the bathroom at the front of the plane. So there was a whole lot of back and forth traffic, people taking their kids, going to that, the bathroom that's right outside the pilot's cockpit, that one in the front. Access-wise, fantastic. Smell-wise, not so cool. There were some odors that came out of there at times that literally made me want to gag. So that was the only bad thing about being that close to that bathroom. But from what I could tell, when people opened the door, it was clean, it was accessible. That part was fine. The second thing I did not like about it was the overhead compartment had some other equipment in it, so we weren't able to store our carry-on luggage in that cubby directly above our heads. That part I did not like. I felt like if I was paying more for those seats, that I should have a direct space above my head for my carry-on. What the stewardess had to do, or the flight attendant, because men do it too, the flight attendant had to take my bags and find a place for my carry-on luggage. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, why does it have to be 4 cubbies back? You know, how did other people get the space if I paid for these premium seats? How is it that their carry-ons took my space? I did not like that. And if I ever fly Frontier again, I will not sit in the very front for that reason, and because of the bathroom situation. I think I'll sit maybe on the 3rd row or the 4th row to give me a little bit more. Still leg room and all that, but bathroom odors and not having space directly above our heads, or at least in the cubby across from us, a storage bin across from us, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I did not want somebody else's luggage to get, premium space, and then they got to put mine in where it can fit in. That didn't seem very fair. So I did not like that. About my booking, that was an interesting thing. I had alluded to it in my episode about Kiwi.com, and it probably was not Kiwi's fault. This might be the way Frontier does it. I still had an issue with Kiwi in that it was not relayed in a way that I felt like would have helped me to connect the dots better. But what I noticed with Frontier, even though we used one credit card to book for 2 passengers, right? They gave us 2 separate airline codes as if we did not book together. And I don't know for sure if this would have happened or not, but with us having 2 separate codes, then if I had not said anything, my husband might not have been sitting beside me. So I did not like that there was 2 separate codes, right? I didn't like that. Now, fortunately, because Kiwi has suggested that we call Frontier directly, we were able to actually speak to a person. Wait, did we speak to a person? No, actually we did not. It was a live chat. We didn't speak to a person. I did not like that, especially when trying to resolve issues, that kind of thing. And what was confusing was all I had was Kiwi's booking confirmation number. And that was not, it did not translate to the actual airline. So they kept asking me for the airline code. For the airline code, I didn't know what it was. The correspondence we had received through Kiwi did not, in my opinion, designate it in the way that Frontier would understand. Okay? I didn't have any way of determining, oh, this is the flight code for Frontier. I didn't know that. All they had was me as a passenger, my husband as a passenger. They had something in parentheses, but they did not say that this was an airline code. I think that what they called it, let me look at my notes. They called it a carrier reservation number. I didn't know when they asked, well, what was your code? What was your airline code? I just gave them the booking confirmation. They said, no, it can't be that. And so there was this kind of confusion trying to figure out what the actual Frontier code was. I did not like the fact that it was not better relayed, better communicated by Kiwi. But anyway, and what I didn't like about Frontier is 2 separate codes for the passengers. That I didn't understand that, and I didn't like that. And because of it being 2 separate codes, it made what could have been a very simple situation more complicated. I was able to give the Frontier person my name, date of departure, that kind of thing. And they were able to pull mine right up. And I said, well, can you give me what you're talking about? I wrote that down. I said, now, and then I hung up because thinking that I got the information. I hung up and I was like, good. But when I went to Frontier's app to do the baggage and to do my seat selection, I noticed it was only me. I didn't see my husband's name. So then we had to call Frontier back, get another person, go through the whole thing again. They asked for the code. I gave them mine, and they kept saying, well, that's you. I said, I know it's me, but my husband's name isn't on it. They said, your husband's name isn't on it. I said, but I booked my husband. They said, no, your husband's name isn't on it. So we went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That was very, very difficult. Then they said, okay, for verification purposes, what credit card did you use? I gave them the credit card I used. They said, are you sure you used that credit card? I said, I certainly did. They said, well, we don't have that. I said, well, how could you have something different? This was the credit card I used. Well, again, back and forth, back and forth. And man, we can't verify anything further to help with your husband because we don't have any information. They didn't have the airline code. They didn't have the correct credit card. And I said, his last name is Viernon. It's Robert Viernon. They said, we're sorry. If you're not Robert Viernon, we can't tell you. It was crazy. And after much back and forth, personal pain and suffering, I went back in my emails, found the e-ticket, looked down it, and the only way I knew, oh, that's the flight code, was because Frontier had given it to me. And I happened to see it. So then when I saw my husband's name and I looked in parentheses, I said, oh, this is it. And I said, okay, I think we have the flight code. So I gave it back to the person that I was talking to at Frontier. And she said, okay, well, can you verify the credit card? Again, I said, this is the credit card we use. She said, I'm sorry, that's not the one we have on record. So it ended up being a thing. So finally, I think my husband got on. Somehow or another, there was other information. We were kind of doing it simultaneously with being on the app. And somehow or another, we resolved it. But it was very, very painful. Very, very, very painful. So that I did not like. But let's see, another pro. Oh, once we finished getting all this thing worked out, I told her, I said, listen, since I've got you on the phone, let's go on and check the baggage and go on and do the seat selection. Once we got over that hurdle, the rep was very helpful. In fact, she got me a better deal than if I had done everything online. She said she was able to talk to her superiors. I can only imagine, she said, this lady has just gone through the ringer trying to figure all this out. Maybe we can do something to help her. So we ended up getting a better deal. I got the business, what would have been synonymous with the business bundle. Now, they said they could not do bundles with the agent. I could only do bundles online. Didn't know that. But that being said, I was able to tell her what I would have wanted. And she was able to get it for me cheaper than if I had done the business bundle online. And she made sure my husband had a seat beside me. And that, all of that together was cheaper than if I had gone online and done it myself. That was the saving grace of the whole situation. Let's see what else I had. Of course, the con is a con, because they're not cons, but a not so positive is the nickel and diming. It's expensive. Checking your baggage is expensive. It's very expensive. Their checked baggage was much more expensive than JetBlue's. I'll get to JetBlue in the next episode. But that, you paid for just about every single doggone thing with Frontier. Okay? So even though you might have gotten it looked like a cheap rate, by the time you finished adding everything together, it was kind of expensive. Yeah, I think I've gotten all the cons. Oh, one more. One of the things that I got was priority, even with Zone 1. Zone 1 is the first zone that's called, right? So even though I was Zone 1, I was supposed to get priority Zone 1, which means I go on before anybody else goes on in Zone 1. Well, the person at the Frontier station desk, when she's calling out the zones, did not call for priority. She called for all these other memberships, like the gold tier or whatever their thing was. She called for them, but she did not call for me. So I ended up being in line with all the rest of the Zone 1s, which probably is why I didn't have space for my luggage. Well, I'm running out of time, y'all. So like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next episode. Okay? Talk to you later. Bye.